something as traumatic as abuse can be frightening up front, but it's certainly worth the healing that's going to come out on the other end.
Well, hey there, folks. It's Rachel here, and it is June, so happy Pride Month to my LGBTQ plus folks. We are so glad that you are here and a part of this community. And I really wanted to speak to something that often comes up in my sessions with clients. When we get to working around sexuality, sexual orientation often is on the table. And questions like, did the abuse make me gay? Do I only like this type of sex because I was traumatized? And so I want to explore this topic with you because it's certainly something that is something I've walked through myself. And I'm going to be drawing from an article that was posted on the PFLAG website, the PFLAG Atlanta website. And I just want to dig into this with you all a little bit. If this is a question that is coming up for you personally, or maybe in your circles, you might have people asking you, or it might be a topic at hand. So I really want to just celebrate and acknowledge all of our LGBTQ plus folks, and glad you are here and a part of our community, and take some time to explore this topic. So I'm just going to read a little bit and talk a little bit, and let's check it out. So understandably, the majority of LGBTQ people, when coming to terms with their sexual orientation or trying to understand it, will ask the inevitable question, why? Or more specifically, why me? I personally have heard many LGBTQ survivors question whether their sexual orientation is a direct consequence of their early sexual abuse. So, some of you may be aware, some of you may not be aware in this community that I'm bisexual. And this has certainly been a question that has been up for me at various times in my life, particularly as a young teenager, as I was beginning to have sex and I was thinking about who I was attracted to and noticing feelings for women, that I was just really confused by this. I was very convinced that it was all just because of the abuse and just because men had treated me like shit, and that I didn't really like girls, particularly growing up in Oklahoma in a small town. There were added pressures to be heteronormative. And so I often just kind of went with that. And and probably around 17 or 18, I experimented some when I was younger, but when I was around 17, I had my first sexual experience with a woman that was really satisfying, and it really opened up this part of me that I still didn't know what to do with it. I still didn't have even a word for it. Nobody was really talking about sexual orientation in that time, and certainly in my little town. So I had all these conflicting, confusing feelings, and what does that mean for me? And it really wasn't until much later in my life, like around my 30s, that I really fully embraced my sexual orientation, and really did this work in having these sorts of conversations with myself, to understand that and break out of that messaging that there was something wrong with me, that this was all just a result of trauma. I love what this author says. Additionally, within the scientific and social science literature, there's a myriad of research claiming to have identified the direct cause of homosexuality. Good Lord. One of the hypotheses regularly tested is that of whether sexual abuse itself can be the cause of homosexuality in adult life. The results of this research is inconclusive, since some research finds a direct correlation, whereas other research expressly denies any correlation. So the jury is out, in other words. And I think this research that's being done is so fascinating. Oh my goodness, how do you even try to figure out something like that? It's definitely above my pay grade. But what I love about what this author offers is a couple of things for us to really consider when struggling with this question. First of all, the numbers don't add up. The National Health and Social Life Survey surveyed, 1.5% of the population of the U.S. identify as, according to the National Health and Social Life Survey, 1.51% of the population of the U.S. identify as LGBTQ, whereas other studies put this figure as high as 8%. So this is somewhat of a dated survey, 1989. So say what? I'm gonna guess that we might need to research that a little bit more. Even so, statistics for people abused in childhood are significantly higher than this, with reliable estimates given for child sexual abuse to be 16% for male and 27% for females. Again, we know those numbers are not exactly accurate. But if there is a causal link between childhood sexual abuse and identifying as LGBTQ later in life, then why aren't the figures for the numbers more correlated, right? There are significantly more cases of sexual abuse than there are people who identify as LGBTQ, and the vast majority of persons sexually abused as children identify as heterosexual. Food for thought, right? One neuroscientist wrote, any human behavior is going to be the result of complex intermingling of genetics and environment. It would be astonishing if it is not true for homosexuality. Okay, so we have complex issues that we're talking about here. There's no, I think, yes, no answer. But when looking at statistics, when thinking about complexity, where does that cause us to land? I think it's really important not to be very binary, no pun intended, or maybe so, about this topic. I think there's too much that we don't understand. But here's what I love so much about what is offered here. Claims that LGBTQ can be caused by childhood sexual abuse are troublesome because this implicitly implies that being LGBTQ plus is not a positive thing, but something that has occurred as a result of serious trauma. Therefore, are we not comparing being LGBTQ plus to suffering from PTSD, DID, or depression? Being LGBTQ is not a disorder. It is not an illness. So we have to be really careful. Of course, sexual trauma can interfere with a survivor's sexual development, sexual enjoyment, the way they engage in sexual behaviors, the ability to know and voice what they want, but it seems unlikely that it would play a role in creating passion, attraction, and love for another person. Isn't that good news? I love that. From Callie Munto. The truth is that sexual abuse and sexuality are a million miles apart. They truly have nothing in common. Something as wonderful and beautiful as our sexuality could never have arisen out of something as ugly and painful as sexual abuse. So take it or leave it. I'm sure there are folks who will have opinions about this, and I'm open to them. I'm listening. It's not like it's something that I've delved into deeply in research, but what I can say from my own personal experience in trying to come to grips really with my own sexuality and the origins of that and what it all means, and second guessing my attraction, feeling shame and doubt about that attraction, is that ultimately we have to embrace who we are, and to lean into acceptance and take into account all that was offered here, and maybe spend a little bit less time questioning ourselves and really just loving others. So to all my queer babies and queer family, I'm glad you're here again, and thank you for listening and allowing me to speak very vulnerably about this topic. It's not something I ever thought I would be doing in a very public way, but I think it's really, really important that we explore this topic. So I look forward to your comments, questions, feedback, and until next time, take good care of you.